To read or not to read?
Hey YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. I will be continuing on with Brandon Sanderson in this video clip. So the next books I would like you to read by him are a little step back from the epic high fantasy. So if you found Mistborn a little too high fantasy for you, then these next books are more middle fantasy, and I think they will appeal to a larger audience. These books are kind of separate from each other, so you can read them in any order. The first book is called The Emperor's Soul. This book is a short book, and maybe where you should start to get a feel for the other two books. The Elantris, I'll move myself out of the way here. So the Elantris is the next book, and is also very good. I think maybe this is Sanderson's first successful book, and some find that the writing is maybe not up to his personal best, but for me it's all about the story and the plot, so I don't usually take off much marks when it comes to perfect writing. The last book is called WarBreaker. This again is a great book. It's kind of a do-over for the Elantris book, but there's lots of changes. The writing and new magic system make it a must-read. Here's a short audio clip from the Emperor's Soul book.
Shai pressed her fingernail into one of the stone blocks of her prison cell. The rock gave way slightly. She rubbed the dust between her fingers. Limestone. An odd material for use in a prison wall, but the whole wall wasn't of limestone, merely that single vein within the block. She smiled. Limestone. That little vein had been easy to miss, but if she was right about it, she had finally identified all 44 types of rock in the wall of her circular pit of a prison cell. Shai knelt down beside her bunk. Using a fork, she'd bent back all of the tines but one, to carve notes into the wood of one bed leg. Without her spectacles, she had to squint as she wrote. To forge something, you had to know its past, its nature. She was almost ready. Her pleasure quickly slipped away, however, as she noticed another set of markings on the bed leg, lit by her flickering candle. Those kept track of her days of imprisonment. So little time, she thought. If her count was right, only a day remained before the date set for her public execution. Deep inside, her nerves were drawn as tight as strings on an instrument. One day remaining to create a soul stamp and escape. But she had no soul stone, only a crude piece of wood, and her only tool for carving was a fork. It would be incredibly difficult. That was the point. This cell was meant for one of her kind, built of stones with many different veins of rock in them to make them difficult to forge. They would come from different quarries, and would each have a unique history. Knowing as little as she did, forging them would be nearly impossible, and even if she did transform the rock, there was probably some other failsafe to stop her. Nights! What a mess she'd gotten herself into. Notes finished, she found herself looking at her bent fork. She'd begun carving the wooden handle, after prying off the metal portion, as a crude soul stamp. You're not going to get out this way, Shai, she told herself. You need another method. She'd waited 6 days, searching for another way out. Guards to exploit, someone to bribe, a hint about the nature of her cell. So far, nothing had. Far above, the door to the dungeons opened. Shai leaped to her feet, tucking the fork handle into her waistband at the small of her back. Had they moved up her execution? Heavy boots sounded on the steps leading into the dungeon, and she squinted at the newcomers who appeared above her cell. 4 were guards, accompanying a man with long features and fingers. A grand, the race who led the empire. That robe of blue and green indicated a minor functionary who had passed the tests for government service, but not risen high in its ranks. Shai waited, tense. The grand leaned down to look at her through the grate. He paused for just a moment, then waved for the guards to unlock it. The arbiters wish to interrogate you, forger. Shai stood back as they opened her cell's ceiling, then lowered a ladder. She climbed, wary. If she were going to take someone to an early execution, she'd have let the prisoner think something else was happening so she wouldn't resist. However, they didn't lock Shai in manacles as they marched her out of the dungeons. Judging by their route, they did indeed seem to be taking her toward the arbiter's study. Shai composed herself. A new challenge, then. Dared she hope for an opportunity?
Thanks again for viewing this video, and comment down below to help me grow this channel. Thanks for your likes and your shares, and I'm out.